Well, in recent years, Oklahoma has enacted aggressive policies to support business development in the state. But there is growing concern that Oklahoma schools are currently not producing enough qualified students to keep the growth in our labor force sustainable. If you will, take a look at these two graphs with me. Now, what they show is a basic disconnect between our educational outcomes in Oklahoma and our industry needs. Now, when you look at these two graphs, the bottom bar shows our current educational attainments, which breaks down like this. Roughly 46% of our population has a high school education or less. Now, 31% has either an associate's degree from a two-year college or a certificate and or a credential, typically from a career tech. Now, moving on down the line, 15% of Oklahomans have a bachelor's degree, while about 7.5% hold a graduate degree. Now, let's compare that with the job requirements up here at the top. And what this shows is pretty eye-opening. Only 4.5% of Oklahoma jobs now require a graduate degree, which is actually less than the number of Oklahomans who currently hold one. Now, it's just the opposite when it comes to our bachelor's degrees. 15% of Oklahomans have either a BA or a BS, but when you look at job openings, right at 1 in 4 now requires a bachelor's, and it's projected that that number will just continue to grow from 23.7% to 28% in the next 4 years. But the most dramatic differences that we see are between what we have and what we need is right here in the middle. Almost half of all the new jobs created between now and 2020 are going to require both a high school education and some skills training, whether it be a two-year degree or a certificate from a career tech. And if you have just a high school diploma or less, as you can see, those job prospects, they have shrunk to just 22%, and they just continue to go down. And therein lies our challenge in Oklahoma. It is this area right here in the middle where you find our growing skills gap between what we have and what we need. And if our current educational outcomes don't improve, fewer and fewer Oklahomans will be qualified for these high-skilled jobs in the red that truly don't take that much schooling, but reward those with the proper credentials and certificates with incomes well above the state average, which is the goal of a program called Oklahoma Works, an initiative to help Oklahomans receive the necessary skills and education for a more prosperous future. Inside this packed hall, industry and educators coming together to address a problem neither can solve alone.
Everyone in business is saying, we've got jobs out there, but we cannot find the skills that we need to fill those jobs.
Fred Morgan is the head of Oklahoma State Chamber, the co-sponsors of 9 workforce forums trying to solve a growing problem. Not enough qualified workers to fill the jobs available.
If we don't have workforce, people aren't going to come here.
Chuck Mills is the founder and president of Mills Machines in Shawnee and says workforce is his #1 concern.
People are the key. You can have so many automated machines, but they have to be operated by people still. And so the programming skills and that all those aptitudes that we need in the workplace with the technology are critical today. But we have to have people.
Which is why Governor Mary Fallin began a program called Oklahoma Works, an effort to create a workforce with the skills and education to fill the job demands of a modern economy.
We have to prepare for the future, not just look at what we need today and the job openings that we have today, but to look at least 10 years out, which is where we're focusing right now, because our economy is changing so quickly. I frequently tell people that our manufacturing companies today that are high-tech, you have to be able to run some type of computer equipment, you got to be able to dial some things, figure some computations, certainly be able to read, are a lot different than the manufacturing companies of my grandfather's day. And when my grandfather was growing up, if he could just pick something up, walk, move, he could probably get a job in manufacturing. But in today's manufacturing industries, you got to be able to do basically some STEM skills, some science, technology, engineering, and math, even to get a basic job in manufacturing because they're so high tech.
Something business owners like Chuck Mills knows all too well.
There's 2 problems, the long term and the short term. The long term problem is we've got to get business and educators working together. And that's today it starts here for us, bringing them to the table together and trying to figure out how we help the kids, because we have a common goal. We need them to be prepared for the workplace. They need resources, and they need to understand that they're teaching these kids not just subject matter, but that subject matter has relevance to be used in their future life and to be productive and be successful and, great citizens of our country. The short term is there are a lot of people that have already gone through the system that have to be retrained, or there's older people that have to be retrained. Some of those have got it by now, some haven't, but there's great opportunities. With the governor saying there's 88,000 job openings right now is incredible. How can we have that many jobs available and have so many people looking for a job that want to work, and yet we can't get that connected? So we've got to get our education community really understanding how they fit, how they can prepare these kids or youth for that job opening. And it starts again earlier on, but really right now at Career Tech, community college, and higher education are the keys for immediate success.
Success that Governor Fallin believes needs to start well before graduation.
Moving down into even our high school students and showing them here's the types of jobs you could get and the types of fun things you could do and make a living at if you continue your education at a career tech or get an associate's degree or a college degree, and to make it relevant to them. So many of our students graduate from high school, graduate from college, and they think, I don't know what I want to do. I mean, a lot of us have had kids like that. But if you can make it relevant to them and build partnerships, internships with these companies, and let them see that if they continue their education, that there's a good career path out there for them.
Well, altogether, 9 different key economic network meetings called KINs were held across the state to identify the next steps in bridging the gaps between the jobs in Oklahoma and the workforce. Now, after the meeting in Shawnee, I asked Oklahoma's Secretary of Education, Natalie Shirley, where we go from here.
The KIN champion, each one of these areas has a KIN champion, will then go out to his colleagues and say, okay, now how do we take this conversation to the next step? What happens in Southeast may look very different than what happens in Shawnee. What happens in Northwest may look very different than what happens in Tulsa. So it really is just a way to begin the conversation, and now we can begin to fully or better understand the issues in a particular region and either put the services there or continue the conversation or whatever needs to happen that is designed specifically for that region.
Now, estimates are that just within the next 5 years, Oklahoma needs to add another 500,000 post-high school degrees and certificates for our economy to maintain its competitiveness.